everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 tournament game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is turn 31. And yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on, so let's jump into it, shall we? Right off the bat, we have incoming trade. We've got a Thistle Mace from Arcosfale and 2 Lightless Lanterns from Ulm. Oh, very nice. Very happy to have that. So we've kind of been doing this, or I'm trying out this new thing where I'm doing like, incoming trade, outgoing trade, etc., etc. And I will try to communicate, right, like when we're establishing new trades. So last turn we sent Arcosfale some nature gems for this Thistle Mace. Why do we even want a Thistle Mace? Because we're gonna do a short run up thaumaturgy, hopefully very quickly, and we're gonna use that Thistle Mace in conjunction with a mountain, a Paco of the Mountain Spirits, to start casting Haruspecs, right? We have a little bit of a nature income, enough that we can, if we take a look at this, enough that we can cast Haruspecs every single turn. I like to, whether it's a good idea, what are you doing, Otis Potus? Whether it's a good idea or not, I like to remote site search, and I like to remote site search once I have established enough of an income, which we already have 3, to be able to do it every single turn. So this, I find, is a quick way to, it may not be efficient, depending on your terms of efficiency and what you're kind of like trying to aim for, but I find this gets you the fastest income, quickly. Now, I am not very I'm not very diligent with my site searching, so I'll just kind of like let it go. I will frequently, at the beginning of a site searching, target places that I think are going to give us better results. All right, so Haruspecs targeting like forests and things like that, but I tend to be one of those people that after a while I just let a fucking auto go. So that's not the greatest habit, but it is what it is. Anyways, that's what we're doing with the Thistle Mace. Plus, just being able to have a Thistle Mace on hand can give us opportunities to cast specific spells. We might do a run-up alteration or higher alteration for something like Wooden Warriors or something like that. That could be pretty useful for us. Anyways. That's going to be it. And then the Lightless Lanterns, of course, our research is abysmal. We've really got to amp up our research. So since we can't make our own Lightless Lanterns, we're probably going to be continuously contracting with Ulm as long as Ulm is willing to, right, to give us Lightless Lanterns. The issue that we're running in right now is we actually don't have enough mages to support all of the Lightless Lanterns that we're getting. So that's the next big step, is trying to develop an economy so that we can actually research and go from there. So we got that. We did summon condors, yay. We lost a unit on the march, not yay. And now we have several battles, so let's go through these. We're going to go through ours first, and then we'll watch everyone else's. So we were attacked by Agartha in Centania. Okay, so Agartha has a little squad coming out here, mostly heavy infantry, some shard guard, and some of these sentinels. The sentinels are relatively dangerous to us, and we have bumped, it looks like, they have bumped with a little stack of Hatenruna. They're going to squish the shit out of this, almost guaranteed. Yeah, those Hatenruna get completely destroyed. I'd be surprised if they killed anything. And we only have, like, a single PD here. I believe this is right next to his capital. And I think the fight that we had last turn where all of our Hatenruna fled and we survived with one, just our Apu, right? I think led to this. So, yeah, that's 13 Hatenruna dead, but whatever. Not a big deal. We attacked in the caves of Mira, and this is our random. I really don't know why I put in the money for this, but this is the freaking mercenary group, the Snake Charmers, and it's just a bunch of militia that were just moving forward. This is in darkness, so these guys have horrible attack skill. These guys, fortunately, also have horrible attack skill, even though they do have dark vision. We're probably going to take a lot of casualties. Every time they hit is probably going to be a kill. Our Shining Hope is harassing them down. I mean, I say that, but actually, Snake Charmers kicked some ass. I mean, it was kind of just overwhelming numbers there, right? We did lose 9 of them. Basically, yeah, the cavemen, every time they swung, killed something. Big squish. Hello, Otis Botus. What are you doing? How are you? How art thou? All right, lay down. I gotta do recording. And then we have a battle in the Fortress of Baral, and this one is the question mark, right? Like, is there something in the fortress that is going to give us a big issue, or is this going to be a freebie? Because we're hoping, right? Everything that we're doing right now is just how many freebies can we get, right? Fingers crossed. So we've got our little squad, not a lot going on. We're basically just relying on a bless and attack rear commands, a little bit of strength of giants, and we've got mixed feelings on this, right? Like, not a lot of infantry. That's very good for us, but quite a few golem crafters, which is not the greatest for us. This could be a lot of elementals. Let's see, does he have a lot of earth gems? Does not look like it. So, probably... Ooh, got an earth gem. Probably going to be fine, then. Because this could mean a lot of, like, this could mean some evocation stuff, but I doubt we're going to see that. I'm expecting we're going to see Legion of Steel, Strength of Giants, and then we're going to drop on them and kill a bunch of people. So, let's see how it goes. We know what we're doing. We'll look at them. What do we got? Bunch of earth power. Everyone's earth powering. They are on guard, Commander. You can tell by the way they're all kind of like dancing around. Stone skin. Only stone skin. Interesting. There comes some earth elementals. Bunch of blessings. Strength of giants. That's a shit ton of strength of giants. Okay. And here come the magma bolts. So this could be potentially concerning. The magma bolts could actually do a lot to us, especially in like a shotgun style situation. So we're, ooh, see, oh my goodness, a lot of damage from that. We are killing a lot of them. Are they routed yet? They are not routed, but they are putting the hurt on us with that. So this is gonna be a victory unless we rout here at the last like minute, but. It definitely hurt. This is the nice side effect of thunder weapons, is the continuous stun against no shock enemies. Okay, yeah, that hurt a little bit, but not as bad as I thought it did. 4 Condors. This is a little unfortunate. 1 Alcakruna Spearman, 2 Condor Warriors, 2 Hatenruna. So not as bad as I thought we were getting it. I thought we were going to lose like in the 20s or something like that, because it looked like those magma bolts were doing work. And they were. They just weren't quite killing. So that's good. Nice. We found a temple, swiftly raised it, and we now have our first fortification outside of our capital. Woo! We're moving up in the world, y'all. Hell yeah. Okay, battles for the turn. That is, what is that? That is 2 wins and 1 loss versus Agartha. Which I had reversed in my notes, because I'm bad at taking. Okay. So we've got that. Let's watch the rest of these battles, see if we see anything interesting. We'll do the Ulm. Ulm is attacking into Agartha on the capital. Let's see what they've got. This is just a ping. It is a single commander. And he spots out Agartha's province defense. That's it. Okay, so simple, easy peasy. And then we have some attacks from Vanheim onto Ashdod territory. So an attack in a mule. Okay, so this is the big army advancing, right? So Einherr, we've got a couple of buffers, we've got some vans with more buffs, a bunch of windmasters, potentially capable of doing some air elementals. And then we've actually got these flagellants, which aren't horrendous. They do multiple attacks, and with, they are sacred, with Van's Bless, these guys actually aren't the worst things in existence. I actually wouldn't mind having some of them with my Bless either. Like, that would be kind of interesting. Because you can see, okay, so magic weapons, right? That's nice. Air 40, shock 5, poison 15, fire 10, cold 10. Very defensive, right? Survivable. Can resist a lot of battlefield evocations, right? 5, 10, 5, 15. So that's nice. The defense skill isn't that great on the flagellants, but it's okay, right? It gives them a little bit of additional survivability. The blood surge, if they actually kill something, great. It's really this kind of like strength 10 and blood surge, so that these guys actually hit relatively hard, and they hit with magic weapons, and they have double attacks, and they actually have higher attack value if they're up against a shield. These guys can surprisingly dish out quite a bit of damage in a short amount of time, kind of amusingly, truth be told. So, anyways, moving on. Nothing gonna happen here. Just one PD. Easy, breezy, beautiful. Scary army coming out from Van. I wonder, do they have anything else that we could... I mean, nothing got triggered because that was such a... you know, it was just one PD. But, no, it doesn't look like they're really... Okay, we've got a Harib Seraph with Skull Staff. This, to me, means he's gotta be... I mean, we can just watch, I suppose. But he's gotta be, like... Raise Dead, Raise Skeletons... He's got to be going for Enchant 5 or something like that, because otherwise, why bother, you know? This guy's not going to produce enough undead with just, you know, Raise Dead to matter, which means he's probably close to Horde of Skeletons. Obviously, he's got the Air Elementals scenarios. This guy, and these guys are... Communion slaves. This guy is gonna be putting up things like, I'm assuming, anti-magic, and maybe like could be going for mass protection at this point. Though this seems a little like quite a bit of nature gems for something like that. More air gems, more air gems. And these guys are all... This is the kill squad. This is the kill giants squad. So this group gets all buffed up, right, by the shamans and by the dwarven smiths, and then they go like attack rear with... So a bunch of luckies come out, and probably strength of giants, legions of steel, that type of stuff. Very scary army. This from what I have seen in the game, right? There are 2 players that I fear the most right off the bat. I say right off the bat, we're 31 turns in the game. There are 2 players that I have come to fear, and those players, or the nations that they are being played, are the Vanheim player and the Pelagian player, right? Because seeing this type of stuff from a Vanheim on turn 31, this is legit play. This is scary shit. This is nicely put together armies that are utilizing a lot of layered defenses and offensive statistics and things like that. This is really good. Really, really, really good. We also have a battle between Van and Ashdod in the Mighty Pillars. This is our old home territory. And there's nothing here for Ashdod. They left. After the big battle, where their stack got wiped by the Einherrs, it looks like Ashdod has pulled out. So, very simple scenario. somewhat dangerous, actually, because so these guys, if it'll actually let me pick them, these guys can be a bit of an issue. These Gileadite archers, they have very long-ranged bows, 60-range great bows, and they hit pretty hard, right? So 17 damage on a 60-range bow. If these things had higher precision, they would actually be super scary. So it's a little dangerous bringing in like this smith and this shaman into this situation because they could just get hit in the head. In point of fact, this guy might have already gotten hit. Yeah, it looks like it. Unit overview. Yeah, a Gileadite archer shot him in the body for 10 points of damage. So that's dangerous. That's absolutely dangerous. Did he hit himself with... Yeah, he hit himself with the protection first, because this is his second cast of protection. If he had not hit himself with his own protection first, he would have died. That's actually really, really interesting. Wow. Okay. See, so I feel vindicated in that kind of situation. Very dangerous. But I mean, these Einhairs are gonna butcher this this garrison without any real issue. The only like potential was, does an archer snipe someone and cause Vanheim some grief, but it does not look like that happened. Got close. Got really close with those Gileadites, but did not happen. I wonder if Ashdod has any plans to use a lot of Gileadite archers. The issue is they have super high resource costs, right? But if you do things like Strength of Giants on them, you have a 22 strength. They're actually pretty decent in melee. They don't have the greatest defensive statistics or anything like that, but they have relatively high protection if you hit them with protection buffs. You can do... What did I say? Mass protection earlier on the fucking... Like, that's moronic, right? Like, I said mass protection on the shaman earlier. Like, that would even be an option. Like, he's still using Lion Tribe Witch Doctors to do regular protection. Not even, like, Wooden Warriors. Just regular protection on his units. But no, he's secretly got mass protection. Fuck off with my brain. Sometimes my brain is an asshat in its comments. I apologize. Anyways, these guys are actually somewhat okay in melee because they have high protection, high HP, they hit relatively hard. You give them strength buffs, they hit even harder. But if you give them strength buffs, they also hit harder with their great bow. It has a base of 11, so it's actually getting a third of the weapon or of the wielder's strength. So a third is 6 right now. So you only get like 1 more point off of a Strength of Giants, but you know, 18 damage great bows are kind of a thing. I don't know. I always find archers really, really interesting. I kind of, you know, like it kind of feels a little bad that archers just become irrelevant in the game once everyone gets arrow fenned up. Right? Like, it kind of does feel meh. I say irrelevant. It's not completely irrelevant. It's just, you know, kind of, it's pretty irrelevant. Anyways, that's going to be the end of the battles. Let's take a look at the unexpected events. So we have an unexpected event in the Caves of Mira. Okay, then. Thank you, Luck, for finally doing a thing. Treasure has been found. Gold, plus 1,070. Very nice. Some fire, air, water, and earth gems. Quite a few earth gems. And then this is kind of astonishing. A skull face. Holy shit. That's not planned. That's a it's like a 40 gem item, isn't it? Check. It's like 40 death gems, I think. Or is it only 20? Skullface. Yeah, it's 40. So a Skullface is a 40 gem item. I don't know why I looked it up in Domfire in the inspector instead of just going here and clicking on it. It'll tell me right here. This is Skullface, right? It gives you the Horde of Skeletons spell, right? It's not an auto spell, but it gives you the Horde of Skeletons spell access to it, which is cool. But obviously the big thing is it's a death booster. And that's really important for us. And getting it for free means we don't have to spend 40 gems on it. This is a big deal. This is a very, very big deal. Very, very useful for us. So very exciting. We also had an unexpected event in Neefel. We had a bad harvest. Tax minus 100. So that's not that big of a deal. Actually, we're only getting 25 income out of Neefel. So, immediately turns around, we get another treasure found in Neefel, and it's like, okay, look, you had a bad harvest, but that bad harvest was minus 25-ish gold, and here's 500. So here's the next, 20 turns worth of income out of that province instead. We'll take it. Yeah, we'll absolutely take that. Plus, we get some fire, air, and earth gems, and some Boots of Youth. So Boots of Youth are interesting, but not crazy awesome. So Reinvigoration 3 slows down aging by 90%. A very interesting item, but not one that I think is going to be that big of a deal. We can use it for some Reinvigoration. That'll be nice, but whatever. Cool. And that's pretty much the events for the turn. So, events for the turn, we've got one negative event and two positive events. The negative event being the Neefel tax is minus 100%. And then the positive events totaling up to gold plus 1,600. That's a hell of a fucking turn. Fire plus 5, air plus 4, water plus 1, earth plus 6. Great gem income for the turn. We got a Skullface, and we got Boots of Youth. So, altogether, an absolutely fantastic turn for events. Really, really, really nice for us. Very, very exciting. And then we can see at the bottom, it has begun. Nation defeated. Yes has been vanquished. And this isn't unexpected. We knew this was incoming. We got a death basket from Yes a few turns ago. But holy shit. We are not the first nation out of the game, and if the active climate of the game is any indication, we're not going to be the second, third, or maybe even fourth nation out of the game. Though, obviously, things could change. Yes is out. Pelagia has finally defeated them. Oceania, I do not think, is far behind Yes, which is a big problem for the entire world, because that is going to be a 3-cap Pelagia, and that's fucking scary, right? A 1-cap Pelagia being left alone for 60 turns is scary, right? A 3-cap Pelagia being left alone for 60 turns is like, fuck, I don't know what the fuck you can do about that. And who would fuck with Pelagia? Well, a Nazca or an Agartha would be potentially good candidates, except we are both pretty screwed up right now. So, you know, I think this is the feeling amongst the entire game right now is like, oh shit, Pelagia is gonna fuck us up. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about that here in just a bit, okay? So aside from that, right, the other political climates being that, you know, obviously, so Oceania is on their way out likely. It looks like Agartha is on their way out likely. And from what we've been seeing of the Vanheim versus Ashdod conflict, it looks like Ashdod is on their way out likely. Other wars, I'm pretty sure there is a war between Arcosfale and Vanarus, but that is a stalemate as far as I've heard. And then there's a war, I believe, between Naba and Jotunheim, and that is a bit of a stalemate as far as I'm aware, right? So, potentially, not only are we not the first out, even with the, the brief 3v1, because it really was a very brief 3v1, right? Even without that, we're not the first one out, and it's likely we will probably make it to, 5th or 6th out or something like that, depending on the very, very near future. We'll see how that goes. So let's jump into things, shall we? We'll talk about movements, and then we'll talk about... we'll probably do our normal thing of movements, and then jump into the more specifics of the turn. So, we have a couple of things going on here, right? This is a relatively low commitment turn for us, because Agartha has a pretty big stack here, right? And we do not want to be the one to deal with it. We already dealt with our big stack over here. Ulm dealt with a big stack over here, and in communication with Ulm is, gonna try to deal with Agartha and take the capital. So more power to them. I feel like we've basically done like halvesies at this point, right? Like me finishing off a big stack on my capital, Ulm finishing off a big stack on Rim Mountains. We both lifted some heavy weights, but if Ulm wants the capital, they've got to lift that final weight, right? Like they gotta put in the final effort for it. Okay, by all means, you go deal with that. Meaning, I'm kind of staying the fuck away from shit. So the only actual attack we have declared this turn is into Mike Marsh with our Snake Charmers, and we are not re-recruiting the Snake Charmers. The hope is that we're going to take Mike Marsh, and then maybe what we end up with is Centania, and then like this little line of coast right here, basically. So I don't know that that's a good thing, right? Because that is putting a lot of coastal borders up with Pelagia. But, it is what it is. I've been in communication with Pelagia, and they're not just, like, hostile against us or anything like that. So, I would expect them to still come at us sooner rather than later. But, we'll see. So that's the only actual attack we're declaring. We got a lot of scouts moving around, just trying to keep track of the conflict between Van and Ashdod, trying to keep eyes on what we can. Ulm versus Agartha, etc., etc. But other than that, the only movements we're really doing is we are moving back to pick up more Hatenruna in Miratrand. And then we are sending over reinforcements to Omia. And the plan being there is after we put up this temple, right? Next turn, we're going to be moving out with this as a stack. So these reinforcements going over there, these Condors and these Sun Warriors, are intended to be an actual army that we're going to fly out towards the Agarthan lands to make sure that we can control whatever we need to. Either we'll hit different areas. The idea being that Ulm is probably going to sit on Agartha's capital pretty shortly. And then we're going to help lock down Agarthan resistance, right? If we need to combine armies, we will have over a 200 strength army, with it mostly being sacreds. And again, keep in mind, right, we actually have a good matchup against Agartha because our Bless has Fire 10 resistance on it. So we actually do decently when it comes to not dying to copious amounts of Magma Children and killing Agarthan units, because the Agarthan units don't have a bunch of shock resistance or anything like that. So this is a relatively good matchup for us. Had we not gotten just annihilated at the very beginning. The plan would have been to have gone on Agartha, but, you know, it is what it is. So, that's kind of the only real movements that we are doing this turn. Let's talk about the next thing, and that is buildings, infrastructure, right? So, pretty light this turn. I say pretty light this turn. This is way bigger than what we've been doing in many past turns. But we're putting down 2 temples. We're putting 1 temple in Omia, and we're putting 1 temple in Baral. So, boom, 2 temples. And that's pretty much it, truth be told. I say pretty much it. That is entirely it. Because that's most of what we can afford with what we have in, you know, specific positions, etc., etc. I am trying, you know, it's 31 turns into the game. You know, we got our first fortification outside of our capital this turn because we had the only one that we were able to put up stolen from us, and then we were locked in our base for several turns. We do have a palisade coming up in Omia. Hopefully that'll be nice. We need infrastructure, right? We need infrastructure and we need money. We need both just terribly badly. Which is why it was very, very, very nice to get so much gold this turn. That was really cool. We are taking advantage of all that gold to try to develop some power, not only in our infrastructure, but in our recruitment. So, take a little bit of a look at recruitment. Recruitment for the turn, we are doing 2 Apusquipes, 1 Paquo of the Mountain Spirits, 1 Sino-Cephalian Chieftain, 1 Inca, 1 Scout, 11 Alcac-Runa Spearmen, 8 Sino-Cephalian Warriors, and 4 Sun Guard. So, a whole bunch of recruitment this turn, at least for us, right? Like, other people will be like, yeah, that's not that much. But for us, it was a shit ton of recruitment, and almost all the recruitment that we could do in almost all of the locations that we could do. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I don't honestly remember why I decided to get Apusquipes instead of Apus, right? I really do not know. I really don't think that the Apusquipes are actually that worth it. I think that maybe I was like, look, let's get some Apusquipes for our Hatan Runa to kind of like ferry them around so they have slightly better morale bonuses. Really don't think that's actually that worth it, truth be told. So, you know, it is what it is, right? So we got the Apusquipes. We're getting some Axemen, just kind of like round out our options. We're getting more Sun Guards, we're getting more Incas, but we're also getting a lot of miscellaneous units. So we have Golem back. We're going to try to start getting some more Sino-Cephalian Warriors. These are decent units. The ones that we did have did get mulched against Ashdod in the Battle of Pack Woods, but the theory behind them is still pretty decent, right? Like, they have a little bit of armor that you can kind of like buff them for. They do berserk. They can be an okay front line to hold while your burbs are doing their burb things, basically. Not the best of plans, but you know, it is what it is. So. And then we're getting a Paquo of Mountain Spirits over here. We had gotten one previously. We're going to get another. We might even get a few more, right? Just kind of depends on how the next couple turns go. It's what it is. More stuff. Nazcan recruits, right? So for Nazcan recruits this turn, we have 28 Hatan Runa and 2 Supayas. The Supaya train continues, although it is still a very, very slow train. We are hoping to be able to move up higher next turn. It's at this point in the game, right? Like, at turn 31, if we had had a good first war and we were, you know, either at 2 caps or, you know, we worked with someone and they had the cap, but we had a fair amount of land, and we hadn't been trapped in our capital for several turns, it's at this point in the game where we would be wanting to get Royal Malquis almost every turn that we could, right? I don't know that we're ever going to get to that point because our income is always going to be stagnant, right? I do honestly feel like if I went back through this, I would probably take neutral luck and just deal with it, right? I do love luck scales, but I would probably just take neutral luck and deal with it and go for growth. We have been pretty fortunate from a luck standpoint, and we've gotten a lot out of it, but I don't think that it's not reliable, obviously. It's luck. So if we actually had the income from growth right now, we would be sitting closer at, like, 1,000 to 1,200 kind of like income at this moment, which would actually be, I mean, it still wouldn't be what we wanted to be, right? But it would be something that we could look forward to scaling. We have shit provinces, and they're going to be shit provinces for the rest of the game, basically, because we did not take growth. So it kind of is what it is. Anyways, so that's unfortunate. The amount of Nazcan special recruits that we're getting is probably it's going to go up eventually, but it's going to have to be more reliant on conjuration things. So actually getting to Conjuration 5 and doing Hawakas and Sapayas, and that's going to require income, right? A fair amount of income. So we've got to start working towards that. But working towards that requires that we be able to research things effectively, and right now we are barely able to fit all of our lightless lanterns on people. So that is a bit of a problem, right? And we're supposed to be getting more from Ulm in the near future, right? So that's something that we've got to be cognizant of. We've got to produce more people in order to get the ability to research more. So, research, by the way, continuing as we are, we're just now finishing Evocation 5, which I think is going to be useful against a couple things, and then we're going to do a short run up Thaumaturgy, like I said, primarily for Haruspex, but also Augury, right? I would love to set a Inca to just spamming Augury every single turn. Going up to level 4 for Auspex and Gnome Lore is also something that we want to do, but I don't know if we're going to do that immediately. And we only have so much research, so we can't get there all in one turn, so I'm not super worried about it. Is what it is. Rituals for the turn. Same rituals we'll probably be doing every chance we can for the rest of forever. We're doing a Dark Knowledge, and we're doing a Summon Condor. I did that in reverse. Whatever. And these, I think, are pretty self-explanatory, right? Dark Knowledge, we have a little bit of a death income. We want more. We want a lot more, right? So we're going to be Dark Knowledging every single province that we have. To try to maximize that death income. Because if we can get over 10, right, then we can do Summon Sapayas every turn. If we can get significantly higher than 10, right, we could look to later on do things like Well of Misery or something like that, but that's a really far future kind of idea. We could also look to do things like Skull Mentors, right, to try to get our own research online, but we don't even have level 1 of construction, so that is also in the very far future, right? Other things that I wanted to talk about this turn are special sites. So I forgot to talk about this. So special sites. Forgot to talk about this in the last video, but we've got more special sites this turn, now that we've taken Baral, so I wanted to talk about it. So in Baral, we have a Hoberg Settlement, but in Austin Glen, we got another slave market, because we have one in Mark, and we got a gold mine. Okay, so this is really interesting for a couple of different reasons, right? The Hoberg Settlement, we also found one of those in Centania last turn. The Hoberg Settlement is actually potentially a bigger deal than one might think it is, because it increases growth. So, even after we take it, the population is relatively low, but even after we take these two provinces, or after our Dominion gets into those two provinces, right? They are still going to edge towards growth because of the increases growth property, meaning that these might be one of our only two scaling options for our income just naturally in our kingdom. The other thing, so that's interesting, right? That's something that we want to keep an eye on. The other thing that's very interesting is this gold mine. This is a lot of money, and we, as we look around, we actually have, even though we have sloth, we actually have decent-ish resources across the board. If we find more gold mines, or more mines, period, we may be inclined to go towards something like Riches from Beneath, because this is relatively easy for us to cast. And while I normally would only consider doing this with a productivity scaled nation, right, who has a lot of resources, we have such a trash income that Riches from Beneath could still do us a whole lot of good, even if we don't have good resources, right? So it's something that we're going to consider, especially if we get a lot of mines, because the mines are kind of like a quick hack in Riches of Beneath, right? Like, they don't care if you have resources. Riches from Beneath will increase your income from the mines. So if you get a bunch of mines, that's kind of a trigger to be like, hey, you got a bunch of mines, use Riches from Beneath anyways, if you can. If not, it's kind of whatever. Again, just looking for how the fuck do we scale our economy and actually be able to afford anything, right? That's one potential option. The slave market is the other potential option, right? So like, one slave market is, okay, that's interesting. 2 slave markets, that's a big deal. 6 blood slaves per turn is breaking into a blood economy, right? And our god has blood 3. This could mean a lot of different things for us. It could mean that we could go up blood magic, and actually do something like go to Curse of Blood, right? Very easy for us to cast, especially since we just got a skull face, right? Get Vampire Lords, turn those Vampire Lords into Blood Hunters, and have an active blood economy. That's a long time down the road, though. Like, just the concept of getting to Blood 7 is painful. And once we got to Blood 7 and we got a blood economy, then we could make use of all the other blood things that we got. But until from 0 to 7, we're basically not making use of any of the blood that we have, which is bad, right? Like, that's a lot of investment for a very, 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 very slow turnaround. Alternatively, though, just going up to something like Blood 4 to get something like Blood Fecundity, this is actually potentially a good thing. We could do Blood Fecundity or something like that in our capital, and put, an extra 30 blood slaves into it so that it's around for 30 turns and start to actually get some growth. The issue with it is we do need very specific, we need a lot of research right now. Research is obviously a huge issue for us at the moment. Going out of our way to get blood fecundity is kind of a pain in the ass. And it was one of those things that was like an option for getting around the growth, the no growth early on in the game, but when we got locked in our capital and et cetera, it kind of turned into one of those scenarios of like, okay, we're probably not going to be able to worry about this. I had planned on being like, okay, let's get a bunch of scouts and throw them in one province and try to get a little bit of blood, and maybe then we dip into blood fecundity whenever we have, 20, 30 slaves. Not even to go blood, just to go blood fecundity, right? Like, so we could do like blood fecundity in Nazca. We could do blood fecundity not in Baral because it's got the growth from the Hoberg Settlement, but in Omia, right? Like find decent-ish places to get some growth, and maybe do like trade winds and things like that, and then maybe we'll have a little bit of an economy. But the early game for us went very awry, so that has been kind of off the wheels. That is still an option. The only issue with it is, like I said, we need a lot of research, and going into Blood 4 is going to take us, even right now if we did it, it'd take us like 3 or 4 turns. So 3 or 4 turns, that's going to be turn 35, and then we're just then starting to accrue, what, 0.2% growth rate? That's, it'll to pay itself back, we would need to have it up for like 40 or 50 turns. I say to pay itself back. There's not really like an associated cost, but for it to really become a good thing, it would need to be up. We would need to get it up soon and go to like turn 70 or 80 for it to really matter. But that might be what happens, so we're gonna look at it as a potential option. So things that we're thinking of on ways to scale our economy, we've got these Hoberg settlements that increase growth. We are potentially looking for more mines and maybe riches from beneath, and we're looking at things like blood fecundity. So all very interesting things. Let's talk about, very briefly, kind of like, I guess the overall concept of what's happening. So I've talked a little bit about our alliance with Ulm. It's going really well. The player and I are pretty communicative, seem pretty positive to one another, I feel like. And yeah, and I definitely feel like this is one of those deals with the devil type situation, right? It's Ulm, which is an early game power, early mid-game power, right? Basically throwing in with the devil, though I think we're both little devils at this point, right? Throwing in with the bad Nazca that's, should be dead right now, but has managed to eke out a little bit of a survival. So it's that concept of like, okay, Ulm can use me to assist themselves in projecting power as if I'm a vassal, which I'm perfectly fine being, right? But the concept is always that, that puts Ulm on a clock, right? Nazca late game versus Ulm late game, when all things are equal, is absolutely in the favor of Nazca, right? Absolutely. Hands down. Nazca late game versus Ulm late game, when the Nazca is small and the Ulm is big, can still turn in the favor of Nazca if they're allowed to catch up and have the right situations, right? So that's kind of the concept that we're leaning towards right now, is that idea of, look, we're trying to upgrade from inconsequential to annoyance, right? How do we do that? By being Ulm's vassal. How do we go further? By being Ulm's vassal and the game going long, right? Like, if the game goes to turn 70, 80, 90, right? That is the potential for us to get back in the game, even with our tiny economy, even with our tiny, land size, to get to the scenario where we're not relying on our economy anymore. We've maximized the amount of bodies we can have, and now all those bodies are roaring with gems or reanimation, and we're shitting out 30, 40 Supayas per turn, and we've got a lot of Hawakas built up, and a lot of Sun Guard built up, and we've got a lot of, innate casting, priests and royal Malquis and things like that, so that we can start to take these kind of cheeky plays, whole shit ton of siege strength, etc., 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 right? That's the kind of like look that we're going for. And it's possible that we get there. It's possible that we do that because two things are kind of developing. Well, I say one thing is absolutely happening, and another thing is kind of developing. The first thing is that Pelagia is gonna be a problem, and the whole world knows it, right? Pelagia has defeated Yis, and Oceania does not seem far behind. right? Like, this is Oceania's capital. That's a lot of Pelagia to be around Oceania's capital, right? So Oceania is probably out in the next couple turns, it seems likely, right? Meaning that the whole world is like, well, fuck. Pelagia, 3-cap Pelagia, let's say turn 35. The only other two really good waterish nations are either dead or dying, right? Or both dying, I guess, in this case. And that's a bad sign. So, using that, I've actually started to reach out to people to develop a Coast Guard, right? We haven't really gotten anything super established yet, but the general idea being that we want to not all attack Pelagia, right? That's not the plan, because that's a real good way for some of us to get deaded real quickly, right? But to be cognizant and communicative about what is happening with Pelagia, and to also try to lock down these fucking thrones, right? Like, get the thrones, lock them down, and as long as we can make sure that Pelagia doesn't have a good majority, like 4 or so thrones, then that's a really good thing. Part of that problem is I've got 2 thrones that I'm like right next to, and I can't fucking do shit against those thrones right now. So this is gonna be a focus for me, trying to figure out what I can do with those thrones over the next couple turns, and continuing to kind of like intentionally foster that fear of Pelagia, which I believe is, one, completely warranted, right? But 2, in our best interest, right? Because if the world is like, oh god, Pelagia, the world isn't, oh god, Nazca, right? The world isn't, god damn it, go finish off Nazca, we don't want them getting their feet back under them, right? It's, if I'm a positive member of the Coast Guard and, contributing and talking about things and being open with communication, then I will be seen as less of a threat, and that's good for me in the long run. The other thing is how fucking well this Vanheim player is playing, right? Like, okay, so again, I kind of been squeeing over their scripting and being willing to commit a large amount of mages and things like that. They're playing really good. They're playing like you should. And that is intimidating. I kind of feel like I don't know if they're gonna roll over Ashdod. I think Ashdod is gearing up for potentially a last stand in their capital, though, which kind of insinuates the idea of rolling over them. So that's gonna mean a large-ish Vanheim, and Vanheim is super threatening, right? Vanheim is such a good nation in the Middle Age, and people know it, right? Like, absolutely people know it. So, I'm considering, I'm keeping an eye on what's going on over here, and I'm considering kind of like starting this, not a Coast Guard, but an Elf Guard kind of situation. I haven't started it yet because I don't think I'm going to get a lot of buy-in yet. But I have started talking to Ulm about what their plans are after Agartha, right? And a lot of their communication has been, well, it kind of depends on what happens with Ashdod and Vanheim, right? And to me, that means, that they would like easy targets, obviously. But if one of them gets too big, i.e. if Vanheim eats up Ashdod, then, that's a problem. And I have an obvious natural border to the Ashdod lands and the Vanheim lands. After taking Agartha, Ulm will have an obvious natural border to the Ashdod lands and the Vanheim lands. And we could potentially try to bring in others as well, right? Like, I forget who Vanarus is on the west side of... That's unlikely to happen because of the conflicts that are going on over there. Jotunheim, I think, is also in conflict with Nabas, so that maybe is unlikely to happen, but we could try to pull in allies if the elves look scary enough, right? And again, Coast Guard, Elf Guard, whatever, right? Like, any attention that we can divert to other threats, legitimate threats, mind you, It's not like I'm just pulling this shit out of my ass. But any attention that we can pull towards those individuals is attention that's pulled away from us, right? So that's kind of our game plan, probably for the next several turns. Probably the next 15 to 20 turns is finish off Agartha, see what we can do against Pelagia, maybe see what happens with Vanheim and Ashdod, and maybe we go in on the Victor or what have you. And probably most importantly, keep this alliance with Ulm strong and keep Ulm happy and play the vassal to Ulm with the idea that in the long run, we could try to outscale and see what happens, right? Okay, that's going to be the end of this turn. That was a very long-winded turn, 55 minutes, dear Lord Jesus. So that's a very long-winded turn, but a lot of kind of like developmental concepts going into this. A lot of high-level strategy and kind of like where I'm aiming and thinking. This is probably one of the first turns in a long time, and it's probably because I got this fort and we're getting another one up here. I'm like, hold up, we've actually got some feet now. We might be able to move from, you know, an annoyance into something more. But it's gonna take a long time. It's we are going to have to play the long game for this, which kind of sucks because I don't want to play more super long games. Oh, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching. Bye bye, everybody. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.